What's going on, everybody? Ken Howard with Green Mountain Defense. Some of you may or may not know, I'm currently attending SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute. I'm doing the associate's degree in firearms technology. This is an assignment. I'm not doing this just for YouTube purposes. There's a million videos on how to do this, but it's an assignment on cleaning our chosen firearm, disassembly, field strip, reassembly, that kind of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the cleaning and maintenance procedure on my super duper customized crazy Glock 19 4th Gen, and we're gonna take you through the process. So step one, obviously we need a safe unloaded pistol. We have that. No brass present, no ammunition source present, no ammunition anywhere on the table. We're good to go there. First thing we'll have to do is we'll have to remove the slide from the frame. So what we're going to do, unfortunately with these Glock pistols, we have to press the trigger to accomplish this. Point the gun in a safe direction, press trigger. Push the slide back just about, half an inch, a little more, a little less. Pull down and release forward. If you couldn't see, what I was pulling down on is these little disassembly levers right here on the side of the frame. Those levers must be depressed in order to accomplish that. I'm going to set this aside. Just for posterity's sake, I'm going to get my light out of the way here. That bad boy could use some cleaning on its own. This gun definitely gets some use, so it is dirty. For Glock's purposes in the manual and what they recommend to the average end user, what you have in front of you is the field strip procedure. You have a field stripped barrel, you have your recoil spring dual captured, you have your slide assembly, and you have your frame assembly. Now, I've just done a bunch of work to this slide assembly. I've been having some problems with my front sight holding, so I've been experimenting with some different Loctites and so forth. So I am not going to detail strip this slide assembly. But if I was going to, basically it involves depressing the plunger safety, removing the end plate, pulling everything out from inside there and going to town. I will clean this today, but I'm not going to disassemble it because, well, it's my gun and I don't want to. What I am, however, going to detail strip is the frame. So frame detail strip on a 4th Gen Glock pistol involves these 3 pins. 1, 2, and 3. All need to be removed to remove the internals of the firearm. So I have a little trick for this actually. And of course I forgot to set this part up before the camera was going. Okay. Disassembly of the frame on the Glock pistol involves these 3 pins. 1, 2, and 3. For this task, I'm very fancy. I like to use a roll of tape so that I have something I can press down on. Just going to get your pin, punch, and you're going to push just like so. I like to use a little pair of these needle nose pliers if I have to get on the other side and remove the pin. Let's set that over here in my little handy dandy parts area so I don't lose it. Pin 1. Pin 2. Finally, yeah, ask me if this thing's dirty. Thousands of rounds run through this gun for real. And finally, Mr. Unhappy. Pin 3 wants to be removed. The hard way. So that's what it'll get. Just like that. Once we've accomplished that, pull up the locking block, pull him out of the way, and pull the entire trigger disassembly out of the way, and the slide stop lever can also be pulled out of the way. Boy, are these components dirty. So there you go. Totally field strip Glock pistol frame. From here, we're going to cut the camera. We're going to move upstairs because that's where I have an air compressor. And we're going to blow all the gunk out of the bottom of this frame. So we're going to cut there and we'll be back in a second. All right, for this step, what I like to do is I like to just use some compressed air. I've got a little leak somewhere in my trigger, but that's okay. It'll still work. All I'm really going to do is just blast. All the little nasty particles out of the frame of the pistol. There, that's all she wrote. Just got to get the worst of it out with an air compressor instead of having to scrub for days. Let's head back down to the bench and finish up. All right, so now that we've blown the compressed air through the frame, what I like to do before I even begin is to simply get a patch, just a dry old patch, and move all throughout the gun. Look at all that nasty coming off on that patch. You can really see the effects of how dirty one of these guns and one of these frames get on the inside. There's probably a few thousand rounds on this since the last time this frame has actually been detail cleaned. I typically just do the field strip, but for the purposes of the video, I thought I'd show you guys a little more. Just a quick little note for the purposes of the video, I have not removed the takedown levers because it's pretty easy to clean around them when you get another one of those patches. Keep going here. Okay. She is certainly dirty. This is a pretty extreme test case, to be honest with you. This is my all the time training and everything else gun. This thing gets absolutely abused and used hard. As long as you keep them lubricated in the right place though, you typically will not have an issue. Okay. Just getting the bulk of the nasty out of there with a dry patch. Next thing I'm going to do is get a little more aggressive. I'm just going to put some of this carbon destroyer from Modern Spartan Systems, thank you SDI, on the end of this here brush. And I'm going to get really scrubby. It's one of those deals where you can't really hurt anything necessarily. Do be careful though, because this is solvent. Gloves are required. Also, in general, solvent is not something that we want to be leaving on the parts of a gun, even if it is a polymer frame, for a long period of time. Solvent is chemically abrasive, and if given enough time, can cause actual damage to parts, so keep that in mind. These brushes are nice with two sizes. If you can't get the one head in, you can usually get the other one in. So we're going to go right to town on that frame. Oh yeah, that's coming. Another patch to dry the solvent. We'll continue to remove excess carbon built up and excess lubricant and gunk and lint and God knows what else is in this gun. Dirty, dirty, dirty. Now, I'll be candid in admitting something, in that I am not a perfectionist. So at a certain point, good enough is good enough. And I do not always attempt to come back with a totally perfectly clean patch at the end. I know guys that do. I am not one of them. So this will be the last patch for the frame. And we are actually, you know, in all honesty, that's coming pretty clean as it is. Very cool. I'll set this frame aside for now. I'm going to repeat the same process on the trigger bar assembly here. This is a trigger group from CMC. These guys make nice equipment. Just kind of performing a visual inspection to make sure the trigger is okay, which it is. Always got to make sure of that. Again, a little bit of solvent on a brush. Sort of a liberal application of solvent. Let that work in. You guys are certainly getting your money's worth here, because this is one of the dirtier guns that you will see cleaned, I'm sure. But like I said, it serves its purposes just fine. Glocks and Glock parts and frames and everything else in my shooting and training world have almost become a disposable commodity, to where I wear them out and then replace them. So, nice and shiny, way better. That cleaned up considerably easier. There we go. Perfect. Set the trigger group aside. Next, come over here to our slide stop lever itself. This little lever can cause you a dickens during reassembly. I'll make sure to notate that when I do it. Be sure not to bend this little spring during cleaning or during reassembly. This is what allows it to be spring actuated when it goes up and down inside of your firearm. So if you bend it, you will not have a functioning slide stop. Ask me how I know. Finally, the locking block. solvent companies and gun lubricant companies love me because I'm one of those guys who might overuse the product just a touch. If a little dab will do you, a little more is probably better. Yes, I know that's not an actual correct analogy, but I seem to have a heavy hand when I pour, let's put it that way. So, nice and clean and shiny locking block. And again, we are coming back and we are making sure that we get the solvent that has just helped us remove all our carbon fouling and buildup off of the part. Of course, the other option is to just skip all this fanciness and throw it all in an ultrasonic cleaner. Okay, moving right along, we have a captured recoil spring assembly, guide rod. He needs love too. There's no super fancy juju to how to do this. The idea is to free up as much nastiness and fouling as possible. After doing so, I like to get a fresh patch and literally roll it dry. And when you do that, you can see that you're pulling things up with the patch. Looks pretty cool. Gonna need another patch here in a second. We're keeping our process moving right along. Don't be afraid to use some patches, ladies and gentlemen. You're gonna go through them. Some of this can be accomplished with a rag, but honestly, this kind of gives you that visual reference on how good of a job you're actually doing. And again, perfection is not the name of the game here. There's an argument to be made for good enough is good enough. And you could repeat this process 7 times and be still removing something. I am just not that guy. I'll just be frank with you. Okay. Moving right along, we're going to do what we're going to do to the slide assembly. Again, as I've said, I'm not going to go crazy in solvent town on this because I just did an application to the front sight post there. But get one of these. And give it some love all the same. Just like so. Just a little bit of solvent on the brush. Again, I'm intentionally staying away from the front sight area. Another use for the tape is to protect our valuable RDS optic from solvent. Yes, that could be a problem if it occurred. And if you think it's not going to occur, when you clean, have a look at the way that tape looks. Do you want that all over the lens of your red dot? I don't. And like so, we remove a couple of fresh patches. Should be good to go. Again, we're going to come back and we're going to be certain that we have removed all of the solvent. Perfect. There we go. Slide assembly is set aside. You guys ready for the fun part? So here comes the fun part. Okay. As you can see, we have ourselves a dirty, dirty barrel. Kind of tough on these all black barrels. This one, match barrel from Suarez, to see just how dirty they are, but the patches, of course, will always tell the tale. So first thing I like to do, you guessed it, brush in some solvent. We're just going to go to town, doing a little scrub-a-dub-dub on the outside of the barrel. Doing our best to work into the nooks and crannies and shelves. Up here by the chamber area, you can even take your small guy and really go to town on those little hard to reach areas. And just do the whole shaft, the outside of the barrel nicely one time over. Be careful not to be too aggressive, depending on what kind of brush you have. On the crown of the barrel, you certainly don't want to mess that up, but it's just a general thing. So then we take a patch to the outside. And we can clearly see that we had a dirty barrel. Shocker, right? Chamber area and the feed ramp become especially dirty. It's a good way to prevent a feedway stoppage right here. Okay, once we've accomplished that neat little trick, it is time to start using some solvent on the interior of the barrel. It becomes critically important to make sure we don't leave solvent behind in our barrel. So I'm going to use a brush. Go to town on it like this. It'll never be as tough coming through as it was the first time. Make sure to use the right size brush. Simply use some strokes. Now I'm going to switch heads. Get that small guy out of the way. And we're going to add a patch directly to the head. There's a hole in the top of these that you put your patch through, and you come up here, you fold the corner and tip together, and you run it back through the jig head like so. Wants to argue with me, but it'll get there eventually. As this pulls through, it will fill up the voids, and it will pull back all sorts of nastiness. That patch almost seems too small. I'll get one of those bigger patches and give that a try. We certainly want to fill up all the space that we can. There we go. That's a happier fit. Just like that, we're starting to get a clean patch. Now, Kent, do we trust a clean patch? No, we certainly do not. So, back to the board brush. Back to the solvent. Repeat that process. I can tell you already that we have had, oh, look at that. See that little puff of nastiness come out of there? We have had an effect because it was initially very difficult to pull the brushes and the patches through. And it's becoming easier. What does that mean? Well, that means our barrel was in fact fouled. That should come as no surprise. We add another patch, we come back, we repeat the process, and yet we find more fouling. I can tell you from personal experience, most folks would have stopped by now. For the purposes of expediency on camera, I'm only going to repeat this process one more time. The truth is, I could probably spend an hour just doing this. Once again, you can see how easily that brush is moving through the barrel this time around. And if you wonder if it was dirty, look at all that nastiness on top of my nice white countertop. Okay. One more patch. Well, a bunch more patches, but one more for solvent. And then we can move on to lubrication and reassembly. Actually, surprisingly enough, I might have managed to get that pretty clean. Notice the patches are not coming out dirty anymore. We'll just need about 3 or 4 more of those patches for lubrication, and then we'll be done. Okay, so now we're done with everything we need with the solvent, so we're going to put that away. Give you an idea how we ended up on the barrel. Nice little, wait for it to focus there. Now all we're really going to do is we're going to lubricate the interior of the barrel with some Spartan accuracy oil from Modern Spartan Systems. So we can use the same patches. We don't have to go nearly as crazy this time around. I'm going to use one more dry patch just to be totally certain that I am done getting solvent out. And that I have, yeah, very cool. Okay. Now I'm done removing solvent. I'm going to take my next patch. And I'm going to lubricate that patch with a drop of the oil around the sides of it. Just to make sure I get the desired effect internally. There we go. Nice and well lubricated barrel. Very cool. Now we are ready to reassemble the pistol. What I like to do is oil the frame rails. You can use a cotton swab or a Q-tip. I'm just going to roll up a patch, get some lubricant on the patch, roll it over in my hand like so. I'm going to lubricate the side rails. Like so. I'm finding that I'm still getting some dirt when I lubricate. So I'm going to need one more patch. I'm going to go to town on this. I'm not sure if all the solvent was dry yet. If it wasn't, I want to make sure that it was. I may be being a little particular, but particular is better than finding out the hard way. So. Again, lubricate the tip of a patch. Up the slide rails, down the slide rails. Just like so. We're going to consider that part lubricated. Now, guys, ready for the fun part? Here comes the fun part. It's time to reassemble our slide. Yeah, it's time to reassemble our frame. If I knew what the hell I was talking about, it would be better. Anywhooser, take our trigger pack. They call these drop-in for a reason, because we can literally simply drop them in. Thank God for modern technology. And we can find our rear backstrap pin. And our little guy full of tape. And we can send him home. Little dab will do you with the hammer. If you find that you're having to whomp on it or go to town pretty severely, you probably don't have things as well aligned as you want them to be. Anyway, he went in nice and flush, no problems there. Next, we're going to put in the slide stop. Somehow got a piece of lint on it that we're going to have to remove. He only goes in one way. And he sits home like so. We're then going to drop the locking block in on top of him. Making certain that everything fits correctly. Okay. Just like that. I'm going to push our locking block down. And we are going to reassemble the last pin. To hold down the slide stop spring. A spring that was, of course, arguing with me. Okay, now we've got our frame reassembled correctly. And everything is seated. All the pins are where we want them to be. Pin 1, pin 2, and pin 3. The locking block's down. we're going to lubricate with a patch. In all of the proper spots as notated by Glock. We will then reinsert the barrel into the slide, recoil pin, or recoil spring assembly, guide rod. We will slide everything back together. Perform a function check on our slide stop, and function check our trigger assembly. There you have it, folks. Full recoil strip, disassembly, etc. on the Glock 4th Gen G19. Always good to check the trigger and reset. Always good to check the slide stop. Just like that, we're good to go. Put our light back on it, and go to work. Alright, so as you've just seen, we've done our complete cleaning and lubrication on the Glock 4th Generation 9mm pistol. We have stripped the frame, cleaned all the internals, cleaned the barrel, cleaned the recoil spring assembly, cleaned the slide stop, cleaned out the trigger bar, lubricated everything needs lubed, and we have put the gun back together. The only thing that we neglected to do intentionally was to detail strip the frame assembly, because I had just done it and I didn't want to get solvents near my sight channel. Other than that, the gun has been completely function checked. It's ready to rock and roll. Will run fine on the range. So we're quite happy with that. This has been Ken Hauer with Green Mountain Defense. Please like, favorite, subscribe, and share. If you have comments, questions, or concerns, please feel free to leave them below in the comments section. We've got an affiliate link with Big Daddy Unlimited and Amazon in the description. Please help us out with those. Green Mountain Defense is on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Green Mountain Defense. Thanks, guys. We're out of here.